Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be doing a kind of, if you like this popular TikTok book, then you will like this book. So I'm not on TikTok. I have an addictive personality, so I'm like, I can't even download it because it would just be bad news. I'd be on it all the time, so I have to set boundaries. But luckily Barnes and Noble has like a book talk page where they have like the popular books and they're all like there. So I went through the list and looked at the books that I have read, and I found books that I think are similar. So if you've liked kind of this TikTok book and kind of the themes in there, the storylines, then you'll probably like this other book too that isn't, as popular within the TikTok world. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first have We Were Liars by Lockhart. Like, I read this when it first came out like years and years ago. I didn't really like it that much, but I think if you like the theme of, kind of a mystery, unreliable narrator, and then trying to kind of that sense of like unease and like something is wrong and you're trying to piece together the puzzles of the pieces of the puzzle for like the mystery, I think you will like Sharp Objects. So We Were Liars is YA and Sharp Objects is very much adult. But I think if you are kind of, okay reading adult kind of subject matters in here, I think you'll like it because we do have a very unreliable narrator. There are these strings of murders taking place within this girl's hometown, so she goes back and is asked as a reporter to kind of cover this. So she's not only kind of reliving the kind of trauma that left her to kind of leave this town, but also is kind of dealing with trying to figure out why these murders are taking place and just seeing all that going on. But I think this one is really fun. It was like I think it's HBO. They did a TV series on this, which was really well done with Amy Adams. I recommend reading the book and then watching the TV show because I think they complement each other very well. But I think if you like the theme of unreliable narrators and kind of mystery and kind of that sense of unease, then I think you will like this one. Next up we have Six of Crows, which is a very popular book I've seen on even like the TikTok videos that show up on my Pinterest board. But essentially if you like kind of a fantasy book with a full ensemble cast from multiple point of views, I think you will like the Lunar Chronicles. And I think I love the Lunar Chronicles. It was like kind of the first sci-fi fantasy series that I got into, and I think one of Marissa Meyer's very good kind of, what I think makes her stand out from other authors is her characters and their dialogues with each other and just their interactions and how she is able to portray so much of that character's personality just in their dialogue, which I think makes it a lot of fun. But these were very popular for a while, and I assume they are popular now, but they are just fairy tale retellings of Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White, but I think she does it in a way that is kind of very modern. It takes place in a futuristic world, and I think if you kind of like the multi-character cast in Six of Crows, I think you'll like this as well. Next up is The Midnight Library, and this is a book I read earlier this year and I did not like. And I think one of the criticisms I had was not only was it very repetitive after one point, but I felt like it was trying to be very deep and philosophical and have lyrical writing, but it fell flat. So if you're looking for something that addresses kind of, deeper kind of meanings of life and all these things, and kind of more kind of events that people go through in their life with very beautiful lyrical writing, then I think you will like Beartown. So even though this kind of deals with more kind of the darker sides of the human experience, I think it's still a very beautiful book. So this takes place in this small town in Sweden that is very much its hockey game, his hockey team is its town's pride and glory. So when the team finally gets into the finals, kind of before the game, the star player ends up raping the general manager's daughter, and it kind of divides the town in two. After that, it does provide some good criticism on rape culture and just how a town can heal and how people heal from those experiences, and I think this book does a much better job at kind of addressing that part of the human experience than Matt Haig did in The Midnight Library. Like I just thought like what he did, I felt like the potential was there and it was a good idea, but it was just too repetitive and just really cheesy at times. But if you want something that's kind of very much rooted in the human experience with like beautiful writing, beautiful imagery, I think go with Beartown. Next is The Silent Patient, which is a very popular book both here on BookTube and also on TikTok as well. I really enjoyed The Silent Patient, even though I was able to figure out kind of what was going on. I still really enjoyed it, and so I think what makes this book unique is, again, the unreliable narrator, and then also kind of a major plot twist as well. And I do think his next book that has come out, The Maidens, I think also is really good as well, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, and so I have Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I read this a couple years ago, and it was my first Karen Slaughter book, but I really ended up liking it. So this again has kind of a somewhat unreliable narrator. There's so many plot twists in here, like you are just kept on your toes the entire time. And so it follows these two sisters who had a falling out after their oldest sister ended up, you know, going missing and presumed dead. So they're still kind of very much dealing with the aftermath of all that until like 20 years later, until one of the younger sisters' husband ends up getting murdered in front of her. And it kind of ties into their sister's disappearance, and so these sisters who are very much estranged now have to work together to kind of figure out what is going on. And I think this one is just as good as The Silent Patient because you kind of get the big plot twist reveal at the end, and there's like a mystery in here and all that, and it has like a very interesting and very dysfunctional sister relationship, which I think is always fun to see. But if you kind of like that psychological thriller of, you know, trying to get ahead of the narrator and put the pieces together to figure out like what is actually going on, then I think you'll really like this one. Next is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and this is a book, again, I think I read during my master's, so it was at least like 4 years ago, like a long time ago. But this book deals with a lot of themes of, you know, domestic violence and all those things, and I do have two book suggestions here. I think the first one would be The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. This again touches on some more kind of deeper subject matter in the form of domestic violence. In this case, it is dealing with a girl whose father came back from Vietnam War, and he's kind of dealing with PTSD, and he decides that the only way that their family can kind of get back on track is if they move to Alaska. And it kind of follows her story of, you know, living in Alaska where the outside world is dangerous with all the wildlife, like just the weather, the environment that they live in, but also her home environment as well, where her dad is abusing her mother and her just kind of experience with that. And I think this one is very difficult to read, but I feel like that Kristin Hannah handles this in a very honest and respectful manner that provides a realistic, you know, depiction of kind of this type of subject matter. So I feel like she does a really good job with that. And then kind of a non-fiction one is Lucky by Alice Sebold. I read this during my undergrad, so almost 10 years now, but it is her memoir of her getting raped when she was in university, and just her experience with going through with that, the trial, and how that kind of changed her life. And it is a very difficult book to read, but just kind of seeing what she had to go through and overcome, and what she is still struggling now as even like an adult, and this happened several decades ago, I think is very interesting to read. It's a very difficult to read, but I think it is one that is very necessary, and I think a lot of people need to read more of this. And yeah, it is definitely a book that will change you. Next up is the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy by Sarah J Maas, and I don't really have like a fantasy equivalent to this, but if you kind of like the steamy stuff, then I think you'll like the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. I just read these, like the 3 books in this trilogy not too long ago, and I wasn't expecting it to be as X-rated as it was, but if you kind of like the kind of more explicit sides of the ACOTAR series, then I think you will like this. It deals with different kind of romance tropes, which I think are kind of addressed in like the ACOTAR trilogy. And so the first one is kind of enemies. It's kind of like hate to love, then we have kind of fake dating, and then enemies to lovers. So if you kind of like those scenes with like the steamy kind of sides to them, then I think you will like you know, this trilogy here. Like I said, I wasn't expecting it to be kind of as explicit as it was, but if you kind of like those things, then, you know, go check out this trilogy. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your TikTok, you know, if you like this, you'll like that kind of, you know, books are, and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.